The reason I decided to talk about the beach is obviously I live in Miami Beach. I live in South Beach. I read an article that I shared on my Facebook about how the beach, hold on, let me just make sure I get it right. Neuroscientists strongly recommend that you visit the beach regularly. Here's why. And they basically identify it as a blue space, which is a combination of the soothing smells and sounds of water have an effect of peace and calmness on your brain. So it's a super short article, BuzzFeed style. It's not from BuzzFeed, it's from my something, I don't know. So the 4 different ways is that it reduces stress, it boosts your creativity, and reduces feelings of depression, and it will change your perspective on life. I'm not going to go into all that. I can only speak for my experience. I grew up in mainland Miami, mainly in Kendall, Doral, and Coral Gables. So that's really, each of those places, depending on which one, is roughly about 10 to 15 miles from the actual beach. I know that if you haven't visited Miami, Miami is pretty big. And when people from South Florida and people from here refer to Miami-Dade County basically as Miami. So the city of Miami is one city, and then it borders Coral Gables, it borders Coconut Grove, and a lot of other municipalities in Miami-Dade County. So when you say you're from Miami, you really could be somewhere, in any of these cities. So that's why, having grown up in Miami, even though I went to the beach regularly, not only Miami Beach and Key Biscayne, which are the main beaches that I think are the only beaches that are accessible from Miami within 20 to 30 minutes, depending on traffic, 45, are really Key Biscayne, which is it's kind of like an expensive area. So they're small private beaches. And then there's Miami Beach. And then Miami Beach is its own, I hope I'm getting this right. I didn't do any research about this, but I'm pretty sure I know it. But yeah, so Miami Beach is kind of like an island, and then it goes North Miami Beach, and then they're not necessarily connected to the mainland other than through causeways and bridges and stuff. And then so even like if you live in Miami and you live on the water, generally you would probably be living on a waterway or the bay, places where it's accessible on boat, but it's not necessarily, it doesn't have like a sandy beach where you would think a beach where you can make sandcastles, So though the beach here in Miami is Miami Beach and North Miami Beach, and then you can keep on going up to Fort Lauderdale and all that. But so that's kind of like a difference. I think that when people aren't from here, they assume that when you grew up in Miami that you went to like Beach High, which is the high school here in Miami Beach. And Miami Beach is actually very different than Miami, mainland Miami. So, in mainland Miami, people speak with Miami accent. There's no, honestly, each area in like Miami-Dade County is really completely different, to be honest. But when you think of Miami people, you think of people that are more from the mainland. And then over here is the tourist area. So here it's a lot of transient people. It's a lot of people that work in hospitality. And so like when you hear somebody that moved here from like, Michigan or, anywhere, generally they usually move to Miami Beach or now lately toward Wynwood Design District, Morningside. Those areas in the past 5 to 10 years have really been developed. Before that, generally the people that I'm referring to generally would have stuck to small part of downtown. Downtown has been developed a lot too in the past few years. Again, no beach in downtown. So downtown is on the bay, but it's not on a beach. Like I feel like, when I was growing up, the way I thought that people thought of Miami is like Hilton Head, North Carolina, which I just saw on the show Southern Charm, where it's like there are homes on mounds of sand that are on the water. I want to say I think that Palm Beach is like that, but I'm not 100% sure because I've only been there a couple times. But yeah, so Miami's not like that. And then the beaches here, it's like hotels. It's like a strip of hotels. And then again, once you get more north, then there's actual homes that are on private beaches and all that stuff. But when you think of Miami Beach and you think of the beach and going to the beach in Miami, you generally think of, South Beach, North Beach, Morningside. There's the one with the dogs and where you can go nude, which I can't remember the name right now. Hollover, I think. So yeah, that's like a differentiation that I don't think enough people make. And then you see people on TV like and I have it on my blog too in the welcome page, like where I saw it right now. I'm watching Love and Hip Hop Miami, and they say it too. It's like, oh no, like Miami isn't like Ocean Drive and all that stuff, which is the same with most tourist destinations. But yeah, so that's the difference between Miami and Miami Beach. And I wanted to go into a little bit about why I decided to move to Miami Beach. So the other weird thing about Miami and Miami Beach is that Miami people hate going to Miami Beach. And people in Miami Beach hate going to Miami. And obviously that's a huge generalization. Sorry, not sorry. But generally speaking, making plans with either people that live in the beach or people that live on the mainland is, who's going to crack under the pressure and just decide to brave the traffic and the parking and all that to get to either side of town. Because again, generally, like where I grew up was in the suburbs. So that's a good 10, 15 miles on a normal day. It could easily be 45 minutes up to an hour. I've literally spent an hour and a half in traffic going 10 miles. I actually did that just last Friday or the Friday before. It was super fun. But Miami traffic is its own video, perhaps even a series. I don't know. Yeah, so the other interesting thing about even living on Miami Beach, aside from the fact that Miami people basically refuse to come or have to sleep over, which is actually kind of fun. But like I live, oh, and then when you live in Miami Beach, another thing I wanted to like make clear about actually living here is that, so I live on South Beach and I live toward the bay. It's really not that wide. And I live about a mile from the actual sand. So even when you live in Miami Beach and you live in South Beach and you're still as close as you're going to be living in Miami, you're still kind of a ways. Like you still usually have to either drive or Uber. I usually try and like jog or walk, just to get some form of exercise in. The good thing about South Beach is very centralized. So you can walk to a lot of places. So sometimes it's like, you go down Lincoln Road, you get like, either like beer or like snacks. So you kind of like can do stuff on your walk to the beach. It's not like coming in from like, anywhere crazy, but it's still a ways. Like it's very, very few people actually live on the beach in Miami. Very few. Obviously, it's generally wealthy people that have successful enough to have purchased or bought at the right time, so that's one of those things that I don't think people necessarily really understand until they get here. And then even then, so even though you're a 15-minute walk from the beach, there's also the rain. The freaking rain. It has been raining, I want to say for a good 2 weeks, like a solid 2 weeks. Like I think yesterday the sun came out for a little bit. Today it hasn't been raining that much. It's been sprinkling. And usually May and June, I remember like when I was in 5th grade, I did a project and it was the end of the year I think it was maybe 4th grade. And it was the end of the year and we made these like paper animals, and they were hung all over the room and we colored them in with markers and all that stuff. And I was bringing mine home probably the beginning of June in Calusa Elementary in Kendall, and it was freaking pouring rain on our walk. And so my pelican, I think it was, ended up like decapitated before it got to my house. Pretty sad. But that's kind of what reminds me how May and June are really rainy here in Miami. And July too. My birthday's in the beginning of July, and almost always gets rained out. And 4th of July is also very rainy usually here. So that's the other thing, that aside from the fact that not everybody's really right next to the beach, another reason why a lot of people in Miami don't go to the beach is because it's rainy. And it's also challenging because you kind of do have to prepare for the beach. Obviously, I can just run over there, and if it rains, it's like, okay, I got wet. But if you're planning on coming from any other part of town, and driving almost an hour over here, paying upwards on the weekends, minimum $20 for parking, you want to make sure it's not rainy. So I think that that's kind of another reason that a lot of Miami people don't really actually go to the beach and enjoy the blue space as much as they should. Maybe that's why Miami people are generally seen as really rude, because they think we go to the beach and we don't. But I do love the beach. The reason that I moved here, several reasons. I had one of my really good friends was already living in this building, and the opportunity came up and I seized upon it. But I was working before about my commute was about 45 minutes, and that was definitely challenging. The good thing is, though, that when you live in the beach here in Miami, the traffic favors you. So like when I have to drive out to go on site, which I do a few times a week, or to visit my family or friends, like I'm at least going against. I still spent an hour and a half in traffic last Friday, and I just drove into the beach now, and there was definitely a lot of traffic heading that way. Oh wait, so yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So that's the point. Like when I was coming in now about an hour ago, there was traffic going to Miami, which if you live in the beach and you're working in Miami, you're coming this way. So I didn't really get that much traffic. I was really confused at first. Yeah. So I didn't get that much traffic coming in. So that's kind of one of the good things about living here. It just it sucks if you work here and then you have to go back to Miami, because you're going with the traffic, like with the traffic as in bad. What? Okay. So I have an issue with against traffic and with traffic. People say it's like, oh yeah, the good thing about living in the beach is that you're going against traffic. But I think it's because against has a negative connotation that I'm like always like, my head is always like, no. And then I'm like, oh wait, yeah, because it's like against, like traffic, and then you're going this way. So it's like, yeah, against, but then it's like you're going with traffic, meaning that it's bad. So it's like, I feel like we should think about that. Right? Like, shouldn't it be like, I don't know, whatever. No one's gonna answer me, obviously. I keep on forgetting this isn't like a FaceTime. Well, yeah. So that's one of the good things about living here. The other reason, aside from having a friend here and always kind of wanting, I was always scared to live in South Beach, if I'm honest. Like when you live in Miami, it gets a bum rap. Like your parents are like terrified for your life. I thank goodness. I don't know if that's wood, but I'm knocking on. Oh, this is wood. I haven't had any incidents with crime here in the beach. I've witnessed stuff. I've had things go down on my block. Thank goodness I was not around when that happens. I'm sure statistically it's probably bad, but also it's very centralized. So everybody's kind of together. So it's like, whereas when you're on the mainland, everything's more spread out. So it's kind of, I don't know. I don't know that it's necessarily more dangerous to live here. I know that that's the perception of Miami people, that Miami Beach is more dangerous. So that was kind of like a concern, but so that's maybe why I hadn't done it before. And then people always think it's like, oh, it's so much traffic. But like I said, the traffic issue is kind of different. But however, when it does come down to traffic is the events. So like this weekend, there was an Air and Sea show and there was a bunch of tourists. And so they closed off almost every street. They were doing DUI checkpoints and made it one lane to get in and out. So it's like, you could be on a Friday night going to a friend's house for a get together and then end up in an hour sitting for an hour traffic on the causeway because they've either shut down streets or everybody's just trying to get in. It's mayhem. The other time that it's really bad is Art Basel. Like whenever Art Basel's happening, it's like the worst. Like these are the times, like I said in my last video on Saturday when I was holed up in my apartment, you just like Postmates is your best friend. Netflix is your best friend because it's just not. However, but when it comes to hanging out with people that don't live here, because living here, the good thing is that if you do have friends in the area, you can still hang out. You could walk there. You can bike. I don't know. I'm scared to bike in the beach. That's another. I have to do a video about biking because I feel like I want to conquer that fear. But I've seen people get hit by bikes here. No, people on bikes get hit by cars here so often that I feel like my anxiety would peak so much on like a city bike that I don't think it's necessarily a good value proposition for me to get somewhere 5 minutes faster, but then I have to like go to a shrink. I don't know. I don't think it's a good idea. I haven't, but I feel like I do want to do it because I hate being scared of stuff. But anyway, I digress. So yeah, I'm scared to bike in South Beach, but yeah, well, probably the final thing that I would say, aside from having friends and it being very convenient, I can walk to Publix, I can walk to Whole Foods, I can walk to Fresh Market. They're building a Trader Joe's, they're building a Target. Like I literally, if there was nobody that I loved outside of the perimeter of this city, I really wouldn't have to leave. There's a hospital, there's another hospital. There's a bunch of urgent cares. All my doctors are here. So those are really great things about living in South Beach. I know I talked about the crime and getting hit by cars and all that stuff. So I wanted to balance it out because it's like, I don't want to say it's like I still live here. You can find places that are affordable. A lot of the biggest misnomer I would say about South Beach is that it's too expensive. It's actually the most inventory for renting at the best value. That's what I'll say about that. That is, I think, a really good video topic because I think, again, a lot of people, mainly Miami people, but a lot of people just think it's really expensive. It's not. I don't pay that much here. It's really benefited me with the career change that I did and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. It's been very beneficial to have this setup, and that I could have, and I know friends that have it in other parts of the beach, but I get so many perks from living here on South Beach. And the pretty much I would say the thing that's gotten me to stay here is the variety of like human beings here. Not always for the better, obviously, but then again, I've lived all over Miami. You pick your battles with what type of people you want to deal with. But here in South Beach, it's kind of it's interesting. I'm like the most like Miami person that I like ever run into in the South Beach because there's not that many Miami people. You're an exotic here in Miami Beach being from Miami. And that's like, it sounds crazy, but it's so true. There's just, and again, one of the things I like is that I'm exposed to so many different people that growing up, I went to a public elementary school, Calusa Elementary. That was awesome because I went to school. My best friends were literally, each year it was either, one of my best friends was Persian, another one was Jewish, another one was Black. Most of my teachers were Black for the most part, which, all those things in Miami are really important because I never really grew up not being exposed to different types of people. Then for middle school and high school, I went to a private school. And so that was a little more homogenous, mainly all boys and then mainly Cuban. So I've had different experiences in terms of diversity, but I will say what I do love about Miami Beach and why I think I do want to call it home, even though there are issues for the long term. I call it home now and I have for 5 years. But in the long term is the diversity. Like I like hearing different languages. And it would be insane for somebody to stand on a corner in South Beach and tell you to speak English. They would have to say it to Russians, to Italians, to French people, to everybody. There's people from all walks of life. There's all people from all income levels. And there really is something for everybody, and it is very diverse. And so I think that, I guess, kind of where I was going with this in my head, the reason that beach article um, kind of tipped, well, no, okay. Well, the final thing, sorry, the diversity was another thing. This is where editing would probably come in handy. Cut to. No, so the bringing it back to the article. So the reason that I think the article was so important, because I had mentioned, like, in the social anxiety video, and I'm going to do a self-esteem video, mental health. So I think that the blue space idea, I could definitely relate to that. And sometimes what I do is I go jogging on the beach. So it's like, even though I may not spend time laying out on the sand, when I'm stressed out, I go jogging on the sand. And it's obviously really good also for your muscles to jog on the sand and all that. But it really, really does change your perspective. I think one of the good things about having some time where I can work remote, even though I haven't really taken advantage of it now that I think about it, I should, but is, being able to go during the week. What I love about living in the beach in the summer is that it's not season. So there's barely anybody here. And then it gets dark closer to 8. So you could actually go, even getting home at 6:30, you can haul your cookies to the beach and have a good hour of relaxing. And like relaxing. I mean, it's science, like neuroscience, and I think that that's one of the most valuable things about living here, even though all the other stuff is great, the social aspects and all that, and the convenience. I think that being able to, and it's weird to call it nature because it's so developed. So it's so developed and polluted, unfortunately. However, the beach is still nature, and it's something that is accessible while living in a centralized city. So that is, I've just figured out. That is what that's what drew me here, aside from friends, aside from convenience, aside from the fact that it's still freaking cool to live in Miami Beach. You still do all of the reality shows and all that stuff that record all over here. And places that I've worked, like, downtown and in Midtown and all that. Like, this is the area that really gets filmed a lot, which I never actually see them. Every time I watch Jersey Shore, I'm like, oh my God, you guys were right in my neighborhood. Like, imagine if I was like, walking, I could have seen them. I never saw them, unfortunately. Maybe they'll do a second season or something. But yeah, and then that's also the interesting dichotomy, that's the Miami everybody sees most, but the one that Miamians see least. Like, but nonetheless, so the cool factor is just, it is what it is. But I really just do love, the calm aspect of being able to visit the beach, step on the sand, hear the waves, seeing people. The final thing also is seeing people on vacation. I always tell people that when I'm working remote and I go anywhere here in Miami Beach, when I'm walking to and from, I'm seeing people that are getting ready to go on the sand and to chill. People are in vacation mode. If you set up in a coffee shop here and you're getting work done, what day is today? Tuesday. I didn't do that today, but let's say you do, one of the really great perks is that if you can't actually get to the water, you at least see people going to the water. I don't know, maybe for other people, maybe they get jealous. I just look at it as, somebody's enjoying this. Somebody's gonna go hang out and just do nothing and relax. So I feed off of those vibes, and that's another thing that I really love about the beach. And I think that's it. My computer's actually dying, but